Hello, my name is Winnie Barawa and I'll be taking you through the session of Introduction to Research. So enjoy. So first of all, I would like us to define what research is, and in simplified form, research simply means search for knowledge or trying to understand in details what could be happening and what is causing it, or any relation to what is ongoing in a particular area or specialization. So in detail, the definition of research simply means a process, but research is also an art. So this is an art of defining and redefining problems. But again, in this process of research, you have to formulate hypotheses. And in formulating hypotheses, for those who don't understand, a hypothesis is a belief, or a hypothesis is an assumption that someone has in regards to a particular area, for example. For example, there is assumption that when it is raining, then the temperatures might go low. But when you're doing research, you may formulate that assumption, but you want to prove it after you've done the research if that assumption is true or it's not true. So that's what we mean by hypothesis. It's simply an assumption in regards to a certain area of your belief or perspectives. And again, in the process of research, there will be suggested solutions. So as a result, they'll be collecting, organizing, and evaluating data that will help you make deductions and reach conclusions. The deductions and the conclusion will now help us in testing conclusions and to determine any formulation of hypotheses. So research is simply a process. That's what I want us to understand first as we move forward, that the minute you are ready to do research, or you are calling yourself a researcher and you want to go to the ground to find things around a certain topic that you've seen to be a problem or is on happening in that particular point. So the main agenda, most of it, is that you're looking for knowledge or you're going to find more facts about this area. But because the research is a process and an art, so in this case you will have the process including defining and redefining the problem, formulating a hypothesis, and you as the researcher suggesting a solution. And then after you have done that, you'll be collecting, organizing, and evaluating the data. Now, this evaluation of data is what will help you reach a conclusion. And this conclusion is what now we will use to either determine to see if your hypothesis is real or your hypothesis has changes or needs modification in terms of how to make it fit better. So that's what research is. It's simply a search of knowledge, but it's a guided process. Very systematic. You first define the problem, you formulate hypothesis, or what we said is an assumption, and then you go ahead and collect, organize, and evaluate your data, and then make conclusions. And these conclusions are what will help you to either conclude on your hypothesis or modify your hypothesis. So I hope you're flowing with me. So why do people conduct research? Because the next part that we're going to do is why do we do different things? Why would you wake up the basic reasons why we research or why we study research that involves mainly is because research helps us to gain familiarity in certain phenomena, or it will help to give us new insights in certain areas. So remember, everything we are operating in is guided by research. Be it your normal book that you're reading, they were all researched by different authors. Be it a certain belief you hold based on your community, on your religion, or whatever you believe in. Basically, most of it originated from research. So when you're doing research, mainly you're trying to find familiarity with a certain phenomena, or you're gaining a new insight in that particular area. The other part why we study research is to portray accurately the characteristics of a particular individual, a situation, or a group. Remember, we said previously that research is targeted mainly for search of knowledge. So you're searching for knowledge, and this knowledge is what will give you a portrait of characteristics of a particular individual, situation, or a group. Again, research can also help you to determine frequency of how something occurs. For example, how many times does it rain in a year in Kenya, for instance? That's a research question that you can formulate. But for you to discover that, it will give you a frequency, and this is what we call the ability to determine frequency when you're studying research. And lastly, you can use research to test hypotheses. And in hypothesis, we've already said this is an assumption that you hold in regard to a particular area or particular belief. So hypotheses are supposed to be tested. So you're rather supposed to test your assumption. So with research, you can test hypotheses to establish what is the cause and relationship between variables. For instance, what is the relationship between raining and the temperatures? So why is it that when it rains, then the temperature goes down? So as a researcher now, you're going to find that relationship, or rather you want to go prove or reject your hypothesis. So research is very interesting, and I hope you will keep focused and enjoying these sessions. So let's keep on. What are the importance of conducting research? So the importance of conducting research, number one, remember we talked about the why. The why is more of like the reasons why we conduct research. But the importance is what are the significance or what benefits do we generate when someone conducts research? So number one, research helps us in generating scientific and inductive thinking. Now, we've said that so many things we believe in were all originated from research, or so many things we're operating in were all generated by research. So as a result of this, research helps us to generate scientific and inductive thinking. What do this mean? Is that through research, there's development of science, but again, through research, there's upgrading in our thinking, in that we become more inductive in such a way that we are able to make a conclusion based on data and evidence. So you're not just making a decision based on what you're thinking. No, you're making a decision based on evidence or data-based thinking. So this is a very important aspect in our lives when you're making a conclusion. That it's not all about emotions and bare theory thinking, but you're based on rather data and evidence. Then the other advantage of research is that it gives us a basis on how to develop policies. So for example, those who are in maternal and child health, there are so many policies coming along there, including policies such as guiding us on vaccinations, for example. Now, to come up with the policy that, let's say, mandates that all children below 5 years need to be vaccinated, then it means there's a research that was done that established a certain advantage why all children under 5 years need to be vaccinated. So research provides that basis for governments to develop policies that will not only influence our economy, but it can also influence the outcome of population. Then the other part is research has a very great significance in our normal operations and problem solving abilities, be it in business or even in other industrial areas. So for instance, those who are in organizations, there's a lot of impact on what we call operational research. And operational research are problem-based most of the time. For example, let's use KMTC as an organization, and one needs to do an operation research. In this case, when you talk about operation, we are looking at what is on the ground that is not happening correctly, that a researcher needs to do more discovery to help that organization to operate well. Let's take a good example, like in KMTC. I'm not sure if we have a pay bill that can be used to do school fee payment, but that could be an area of operation research where you're looking at how do we develop a pay bill that KMTC student can use to pay their school fees. So this is a significant area that research can be used to solve such operational problems or planning problems. And then research is also important, especially for social scientists, where they can help study social relationship and seek answers in relation to social problems. And these are key or some of the areas that research assists us. So we've talked about scientific and inductive thinking as one of it. We have discussed about basis for major governmental policies that guide our economy and also population outcomes. We have contribution in significance areas like operation and planning issues. And then lastly, we've talked about studying social relationships. So research contributes in many areas and it's diverse. It may not be confined to what I have just highlighted here, but it's good also from your end, you're able to get like more areas that research touches on. So from government policies to social problems, to operations, and just to our inductive thinking. And then the other part now, when you're developing the research, there's the aspect of characteristics of a good research. So here you are, you want to do your research, but you need to know that for your research to be authentic and considered up to standard, there are certain characteristics you need to uphold. And one of it is you need to have a clear definition of the research purpose. Like, why are you doing this? What is your objective with this research? For example, is the purpose of pay bill. What is your objective of doing this research around pay bill for fee payment, for instance? Is it because you want to promote efficiency? Do you want to promote effectiveness in fee collection? So define your purpose clearly. So have a clear definition of why you want to conduct that research. And mostly this is where we talk about objectives of the research. We will come later on to how objectives are formulated. But again, you also need to be consistent. Number 2, be consistent in your research focus. You don't want to be talking about pay bill, payment of fees, and then you move again, you want to talk about bank payment systems, then you're moving again, you want to talk about cash payments. No, you need to focus on specific parts, like which exactly are you focusing on. If it's mobile payment, focus on mobile payment. Do not bring other payments into confusing your main focus. And then your research process should be detailed. So the next part is ensuring your research process is very detailed. By detailed means, are you following the steps of developing your research? Is your process following the step-by-step order? So in this case, did you formulate your topic? Did you have an objective? How is your literature? And so on. And then in every research, there are always certain limitations. For example, there are some researches that require huge funds of amount of money. And for you to get this amount of money, you need to really indicate on your research how you will obtain all that fund to cater for your research. So establish how you will overcome your limitation, establish the level of scope of that research, so that the people who will use your data will not raise questions on how you are able to achieve or establish your objectives. And then ensure there is high ethical standards. So research also guided by ethics. And in this case, there are ethics that vary from consent of the participants to confidentiality of the people where you're collecting the data from. So all this needs to come out clearly and how you maintained it. Then ensure there is adequate analysis of the data. So remember, you're going to get data from people or from participants or from certain discoveries and experiments. This data needs to be adequately analyzed. And in this course, we will have an area around data analysis and the different ways of analyzing our data. Findings. How should the findings be analyzed? The findings should be clearly analyzed in a logical way. So there's a process on how data analysis should be done or data findings should be presented. So there's data analysis and then there is data presentation. So analysis and findings, they go hand in hand. However, when you are talking about findings and analysis, you're simply like meaning the same thing. So have clear ways of how your data is presented and how your data is able to be analyzed. And then at least have an abstract. So have an abstract of what you are summarizing in terms of your research. So an abstract is a summary document that highlights the main part of your research, from your objective, your literature background, your conclusions and findings and all that. And then justify your conclusion. So remember, if your research was about the pay bill, justify what you found out. Is it really true that a pay bill can make financial payment effective? Is it true that if KMTC, for instance, adopts pay bill payment for fees, then there will be less balances from the student, or there will be less delays in payment by the student and so on. So conclude and justify why you are concluding in such state. Then the next part is the types of research. So I will discuss this in summary because this will also be handled under research designs and the research approaches. So they will do a broad analysis and explanation around this. But for now, let's just summarize it in an overview, like what type of researches should you anticipate. So I've done a vast, a comparative analysis of this, because you realize where there's a descriptive research, then you will find the opposite is more of the analytic research, and so on and so forth. So let's start with the descriptive research. Descriptive research, this is a research that provides an accurate portray of characteristics of a particular situation or group. This research does not give much details. Most of it is just gives a description of what is there at that particular time. So for instance, you're doing pay bill. Let's use the pay bill financial systems as an example. You do not want to do a major analysis of this. You just want to go straight into what is the status of fee payment in terms of pay bill in KMTC. So the situation could be there's no pay bill at all. So that is the true situation at that particular moment. And as a descriptive researcher, you will not go into details as to the pay bill, how it's developed. You will not go into details like how they should acquire the pay bill, but rather you're just going to analyze what is KMTC current state in terms of pay bill. Is it there or not? So that is the description you will be looking for. While the opposite of analytical, you are looking in details or trying to understand what is the cause and effects and even relationship with other terms. Why is the pay bill not there? So for you, you are looking at it in terms of why is it not there? What are the effects that this pay bill is not there? What are the relationship why the pay bill is not there? Is it because the finance system doesn't allow it? Is it because people don't understand how to use it? So you're looking at cause and the effects, and you're analyzing reasons and variables around it. Then the second category is applied, or also what we call action research, vis-a-vis fundamental or pure or basic research. So the applied research, or what is also called as action research, mostly seeks to solve various practical problems. So it's active, like you find like there's a problem here and you want to solve that problem in that particular moment. So it's also more like an operation kind of a research where you want to solve something that is not working at that particular time. So there's no pay bill here. What do? Want to find out why. Then when you find out why, then you implement it. So it is a very active research. You find the problem, you give strategies and implement to solve the problem. So it's an active type of a reason why you want to do the research. That's why we are calling it either applied or action research. And then the second category of fundamental or pure or basic research, this research is said to just focus on expounding your knowledge. You do not have any agenda of solving the problem. You just want to find a reason why. You want to establish the relationships, you want to establish the knowledge, but your main agenda may not be action oriented. You're not looking into solving. You're basically looking into understanding the knowledge behind it, and that's it. There is no action that is aimed at solving that particular problem, but rather the aim is to just to expound our particular level of knowledge. Then we have quantitative and qualitative, or quantitative vis-a-vis qualitative. In quantitative research, this is research that comes with lots of numbers and mathematics in it. So like people who are in engineering, for instance, their researches involve a lot of maths, numbers and calculations. Or if you're a nurse and you're doing research around vital signs. With vital signs, it means you will do a lot of measurements around temperatures, blood pressure, pulse oximetries, and so on. Those are numbers, or rather those are mathematics. So the results come out in numbers, and as such you will need to quantify. So researches that involves numbers or quantities, then we call those researches quantitative research. While on the other side, researches that involves a lot of descriptions in terms of beliefs, perspectives, meaning, symbols, we categorize these researches as qualitative research. So this research will bring in data that has a lot of description, has a lot of stories, has a lot of beliefs, and so this research doesn't have numbers in it. So you will not find a lot of numbers in it. For example, let's say you want to find the perception of mothers towards family planning, for instance. So in this research, most of what you will establish is why do these mothers, what are the beliefs that these mothers hold on family planning options, for instance. Now, the findings you will get, they will not be coming in terms of numbers, they'll come in terms of description and stories. So these are what we'll categorize as qualitative research findings. Then we have conceptual and empirical. So in conceptual research, we say that this research is related to some abstract idea or theory somewhere. So there's a theory that is guiding this research. Let's say there's a certain theory of management that we know. Which one is the commonest that we all know? Let me use something that makes sense. Okay, there are those theories in nursing that guide the nursing operations. And in these theories, like in the Nightingale theories, for instance, where there is infection prevention, or there are theories guiding issues like management or theories of management, for instance, are the best. So in the management theories, we have like X and Y theory of management, or we have these theories explaining like the behavioral characters of communities. Now, if you're using such theories to try to prove a point in your research objective, then you'll call that research conceptual. While on the other side, when you are trying to prove your theory, your research based on empirical or based on observation and facts, then we will call that research empirical research. So the difference between these two is like this conceptual research, it's based on a theory, it's an idea, so it's not yet proved. But on the other side of empirical, you're basing it on real life experience, so you're relying on what you will see to prove what you're trying to hypothesize. So this empirical is more on observation and experience as opposed to a theoretical thinking. Then other types of research could go all the way to clinical and diagnostic research. Clinical and diagnostic research, these are more of lab-based researches. Good example are our famous Cambridge Institute, and we have there that a lot of clinical research is happening, like discovering vaccines or development of vaccines, development of medications and treatments. All those are diagnostic and clinical researches. But on the other side, you can have other category of researches, including longitudinal research, explorative research. These are researches that can take models of case studies and cohort studies. It's wide. But like I said, we will have a whole lot of topic on research designs, and we will go into details to just explain all these areas. So like I was saying, I was just introducing this topic, but as we go on, we will have it discussed in details. So this is a vicious circle, just showing us the different types of researches that we have mentioned earlier. So we have descriptive, analytical, applied, fundamentals, quantitative, qualitative, and empirical research. So I hope you were able to grasp your mind around all these types, which we've discussed in just a brief or in an overview. But like I'll repeat, we'll have a recap of this in the next units or in the next schedules as we are coming along. And the last part as I close this session is on inductive and deductive reasoning. So when you're conducting research, our thinking is not the same like when you're in a class lecture where you're just waiting for the lecturer to give you knowledge, understand it, okay, or write notes, finalize on what you've understood, and that's it. No. Research can undertake two models of reasoning. You can either be using inductive or deductive reasoning to conduct your research. And I want us to understand this in the most simplest way possible, because some people may not get this to reasoning clearly, but let's start with the inductive first. So in inductive reasoning, the researcher in this state is using a specific observation to form a general conclusion. While in deductive reasoning, the researcher will use a general premise to come down and give us a specific conclusion. So yes, this is why I was saying some people may get lost here, but we will go slowly so that everybody gets it. So in inductive, you are using specific heading to general. I hope that comes out. So let me underline it here. You are using specific going to general, right? So this is okay. So I hope you get it. You started at specific and ended up at a general conclusion. In deductive, you're starting with general, all right, to make a specific conclusion. So deductive, you're like starting from a huge state to come to a smaller state. Inductive, you're starting from a small space going to a bigger space. So how is it working to make it easier? So in deductive, we said you're starting from a big space, you're going into a smaller space. So here you're starting with a huge idea and you want to break this idea to make a specific conclusion. So starting from a general idea to break it into a small idea. So the general idea is that all men or all humans are mortal. I mean, all of us one day will either die or will just become immortal. That's it. But from this idea, you can observe that you have seen a man somewhere who is called Jason. So from observation, Jason is a man. But from general observation, we have said that all men are mortal. So conclusion, specific conclusion about Jason then will be Jason is mortal. I hope that helps someone. And then the next reasoning is what we said is induction or inductive. So in inductive reasoning, we said you're starting from a basic or in a specific, you are headed into a general reasoning. So in this case, specifically you've observed on a personal level that you get a breakout when maybe you eat peanuts or you eat eggs and so on. Analysis is that this breakout is a symptom of allergy. So what will you make as a theory or as a general observation is that generally this person is allergic to peanuts. So in induction, most of the time we use it when you want to make let's say assessment for clinical trials. So when you're doing clinical trials, you'll either decide to go deductive or you can decide to go inductive. But generally also, like all researchers can adapt either of this reasoning. So you want to decide in your research model, or will you like to think deductively or will you like to think inductively? So it's good to really know this so that when you're going to reason around your research, you can know, are you trying to approach a general conclusion or are you trying to approach a specific conclusion? So thank you guys. That was it for today, and I hope you're enjoying these sessions. So these are my references, or rather what I use to get the references and sources from. So I've also attached the same references that you can access and get more details around what I've just discussed. So thank you and enjoy your session.